Hi folks, Chris Voss here from the Chris Voss Show, thechrisvossshow.com, coming to you here with another post. Something I want to talk to you about. This is a very important topic when it comes to being a CEO or president or running your own company, okay? It's called walking the front line. Walking the front line. Now, one of the most important parts about walking the front line is getting to know what's really happening on the forefront of your company. Now, there's a lot of great stories that you can hear about this. One of my favorite stories comes from, I believe, a book from Tom Peters, where he tells a story about how a company that makes frozen foods, the TV dinners that you eat when you go to the frozen food section, a company that made those got a new CEO one day. And the new CEO said, hey, you know what? I want to see what it is that we're eating, what product it is that we're making. So instead of having the normal boardroom discussion where the board of directors would get together and order some fancy lunch up, the CEO said, you know what? We're all going to try our product. We're all going to bring in the TV dinner, have it cooked for us, and we're going to really see what this product is that we're making, et cetera, et cetera. Well, as the story is told, they bring in the TV dinners, much to the chagrin of the elite board of directors who probably didn't want to eat the TV dinners, and they tested out their product. And what they found was their product was total crap. It tastes like crap. It was crap. I don't know that it was exactly crap. Maybe it was, for all I know. You never know what's in those TV dinners. But they realized how horrible their product was and how horrible it was to eat their product and how they were losing so much money and market share when it came to the quality of their product and the quality of their food. So this is a really great story to deal with. And there's many other examples of walking the front line. You know, if you go to one of my blog posts that talks about the 15 most misaligned perceptions of all times, one of them was the CEO of IBM who claimed that no one would ever need more than 10 or 12 supercomputers in the world, and that the idea that there should be computers in every home was just the most laughable idea he can imagine. There are all sorts of examples of this in the business world, okay? The most important thing you can do, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a vice president, or even that, if you're a manager, okay, care about your job. If you're a frontline employee, care about your job. You know, I'll tell you something. When I was like, I think 16 or something, I used to work at McDonald's. And I used to be the cook at the McDonald's. Yep, that was me. And I used to make the burgers. Well, I found there was a certain way of making a Big Mac and adding an extra squirt of secret sauce to it. And there was some sort of different way that I would cook it. I think it was with less salt or something. But there's some sort of variation that I actually used. Probably get sued for McDonald's by this now. But whatever it was, I would constantly get compliments. And if you know, it really takes a lot of work to stand at the front counter of McDonald's and yell to the guy who's the cook in the back that you made one of the best Big Macs or quarter pounders that he'd ever tasted. But there's a certain way that I would prepare it, and I got a lot of compliments on it, given that it was McDonald's for that matter. And I cared about my job. And to me, caring about your job means job security. Now, that's not always a guarantee, but you know what? If you do your job the best you can, you probably have a better likelihood than if you don't. I think we can all agree on that concept. So, walking the front line is very important. Monitoring what your customer's perception of your product is. One of the funny things I used to like to do as a CEO of a large company was I used to like to go out and meet some of the employees. And I would sometimes dress down on like Fridays and stuff, and I go wander into the different areas where the people kind of didn't know me so much. Maybe there were some new employees. I always try to find new employees, fresh employees that didn't know me. And I'd sit down with them and pretend like I was an employee, and I'd try and get their perceptions, what they had heard and whatever. Sometimes we'd have a little fun. I'd say, you know, watch out for the CEO. He's a real jerk. And then later they'd figure out who I was, and it was always a good comedy. But you know, get to the front line. Interview your customers. If you're a CEO, if you're a president of a company, if you're a vice president, get your ass out of the ivory dam tower and go to the front line. Call customers. What's your perception of us? Don't tell them who you are. Maybe you should go to a few different focus groups, sit in the audience very quietly, not letting people know that you're there or who you are or what you're about. Because people are going to say all sorts of stuff if you tell them you're the president or the CEO of the company. You want to hear the bad stuff. I want to hear the horrible things that customers are going to say about my company, because you know what? Those are the things we need to change, because anybody who's going to be that vehement about what our company's doing wrong, I really want to know what they're passionate about, because they're passionate enough to leave us and not do business with again, and tell 20 other people not to do business with us again. So you have to, when you're in that position, you have to want to hear the bad, okay? One of the problems with most CEOs or most people in management is they surround themselves with yes men. And one of the most important things that I learned a long time ago from one of my CEO friends was it's always good to have at least that one naysayer, that one guy who's the alternative guy. He's the opposite guy. When the whole board goes right, he goes left just because the whole board's going right. Now, he's not always right. Sometimes he's just trying to be wrong just so that he can be different. But he usually brings in a good perspective of some of the things that you might need to think about. And sometimes he's the right one and the rest of the board is wrong. So, something to think about. You need to get out from behind your desk. You need to get out to the front line. You need to talk to the frontline salespeople. What are they experiencing? You need to talk to the frontline customer service person. Who's the person at the checkout? What are they experiencing? What are they hearing? What are they seeing? You need to find out what's going on the front line of your company, because the problem with many companies is you're buffered in to a point where you're surrounded with so many yes men that will tell you just about anything you possibly can imagine. So I used to try as much as I could to walk around my company or deal with customers. Sometimes what I do is I go find a customer's file and whatever interactions or dealings with them, and I would call them up and pretend to be a customer service person, and I would actually try and interview them or find out what we could do better, or get them to be really honest with me on what they could do. Some of those discussions are some of the most important things you can have to do with your company, just like the example of the company that brought in their own TV dinner, started eating their own food, and realized what a poor job they were actually doing of it. I think some of the social media companies out there need to do the same thing. They need to get out and they actually need to meet some of their true customers, not the star effort customers that are humping their leg and telling them how great they are. They need to get down to the meat, the small, the business, medium-sized business people, the people who are really the most important people that come to their service en masse. Not to the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world. Go to your base and figure out where it is in its mass, and that's the medium that you need to listen to. So that's my message for you today. Whether you own a small company or big company, walk the line. Don't be afraid to hear what your customers have to say. If you're a small company, you've got 10 customers, ask them how you're doing. Ask them how you can improve. Ask them what you can do better. Now, the first answer you might get is always the popular one. Could you do it cheaper? Okay. Well, obviously, if you did it cheaper, you'd have to lower the service. You're looking to increase the service that you possibly can and maybe increase the price with it. So, ask your customers how you can do better. Don't be afraid to hear the answers. Don't be afraid to have that person on your board who's the contrarian who goes, well, I think that this is crazy what we're doing. Okay? Listen. It's one of the most important aspects you can have as a leader, whether it's a company or whether it's your personal family or et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Thanks for coming by the Chris Voss Show. Bye-bye.